your Srila Prabhupada. Now, before we look at some ways to access and nourish our personal foundational relationship with Srila Prabhupada, let's consider how our Founder-Acarya is for everyone. One way Prabhupada is for everyone is that he's a universal teacher. The year was 1935. In February, Abhay Charanaravinda Das spoke at the Vyasa Puja celebration of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in Bombay. That was the launch of their brand new Gaudiya Math chapter in Bombay. And they asked the person who would become our Prabhupada to give the keynote address because he was such a good speaker. And Prabhupada chose to speak in English. Not only was the Thakur Abhay's spiritual master, he was the Founder-Acharya of the entire Gaudiya mission, which had ignited a renaissance of Krishna consciousness throughout the Indian subcontinent. Addressing the assembly, Abhay declared, quote, "The Acharya Dev to whom we have assembled tonight to offer our humble homage is not the guru of a sectarian institution or one out of many differing exponents of the truth. On the contrary, he is the Jagat Guru, the guru of all of us. The only difference is that some obey him wholeheartedly, while others do not obey him directly." Unquote. In 1971, after Prabhupada had become ISKCON's Founder-Acharya, a reporter asked him how many followers he had. "Unlimited," Prabhupada replied, echoing his earlier homage to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. "Some admit and some don't admit. Admit you are a servant of the Lord Krishna, and your life will be a success." Another way Prabhupada is for everyone is that he's a global preacher, universal teacher, and a global preacher. Between 1965 and 1977, Srila Prabhupada circled the globe 14 times, establishing the Krishna consciousness movement on every major continent. He initiated nearly 5,000 disciples and inspired countless more people to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At an age when most people wish to comfortably retire, Prabhupada kept up non-stop preaching, a non-stop preaching pace, tirelessly responding to his mission's demands. As he wrote one disciple, this is in a letter, quote, "Regarding your invitation that I attend the Rath Yatra festival in San Francisco on July 7th, it is possible that I may attend, depending on when I finish my European tour. I am due to arrive in Rome on May 23rd, then after a week, Geneva, then Paris, and possibly Stockholm, Germany, and England. If there is time, I can fly directly from Europe to Los Angeles and go to the festival. Then, as you suggest, go to Australia Rath Yatra via Hawaii. This is known as Jet Age Paribrajagacharya," unquote. Prabhupada said this is known as because someone brought it to Prabhupada's attention that a journalist for the Hindustan Times in Delhi noticed Prabhupada's schedule, and the journalist said, this is a Jet Age Swami. So Prabhupada said, Jet Age Paribrajacharya, which means someone who just travels around and preaches. Astonishingly, Jet Age Prabhupada never knew jet lag, or ignored it if he did, instantly adapting to the time at his latest destination. And though most of his disciples were young enough to be his grandchildren, they could not keep up with him. As Prabhupada once told a personal assistant, quote, "My desire is to spread Krishna consciousness everywhere at once," unquote. So universal teacher, global preacher, the next way Prabhupada's for everyone is that he's a matchless giver. That Srila Prabhupada founded over 100 Hare Krishna temples, schools, farms, and restaurants, all while writing and publishing dozens of translations and commentaries on foundational Vaishnava scriptures, is simply superhuman. How did he do it? For one thing, Prabhupada did not sleep much. After going to bed at 10, he would usually rise at midnight or 1 a.m. and write through the wee hours. If he had time, he would nap for maybe a half hour after breakfast and a full hour after lunch. His days and nights were a seamless weave of selfless service. Another short sleeper is the cow, to whom Prabhupada would sometimes compare himself. Guru Das recalls that in Bombay, he once told Prabhupada he was concerned that not enough people would come to a program the devotees had arranged. Prabhupada replied, "No, I'm like a cow. I give milk anywhere. That is what I like to do," unquote. And another way Prabhupada's for everyone is that he's an Avesh, a fully empowered, an Avesh avatar. The Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Anchalila 7.11 states, quote, "The fundamental religious system in the age of Kali is the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. Unless empowered by Krishna, one cannot propagate the Sankirtan movement," unquote. Commenting on this verse in Anchya 2.14, Prabhupada further identifies the one who empowers the spreader of the chanting. Quote, "Unless one is empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one cannot spread the holy names of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra throughout the world. Persons who do so are empowered. They are sometimes called Avesh avatars, or empowered incarnations, for they are endowed with the power of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu," unquote. Once an Indian Swami criticized Prabhupada's global preaching by saying that if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had wanted Krishna consciousness in the Western countries, why didn't he go there himself? To which Prabhupada replied, quote, "He left the credit for me. He loves his devotee more than himself," unquote. Yet Prabhupada always passed on that credit to others, to his followers, to his spiritual master, and finally to Krishna himself. It is a mark of Prabhupada's absolute transparency as an Avesh avatar that he named his movement after Lord Krishna, the Hare Krishna movement, not after himself, whom most of the world has yet to discover. That's our duty, to make people aware of Prabhupada. And now he's So that was for everyone, how Prabhupada's for everyone. And now we transition into how Prabhupada's, of course, if he's for everyone, he's especially for everyone in ISKCON. ISKCON's Founder-Acarya. If Prabhupada is for everyone, he is certainly for everyone in ISKCON. As mentioned in Lesson 9, in 1994, ISKCON's governing body passed its first Founder-Acarya resolution. Here are all of its elements. So in the last lesson, we identified just the first one, which is the main one, but now I'm going to give you the full list. A, Srila Prabhupada is the foundational Shiksha Guru for all ISKCON devotees. B, Srila Prabhupada's instructions are the essential teachings for every ISKCON devotee. C, Srila Prabhupada's books are the embodiment of his teachings and should be accepted as the standard by all future generations of ISKCON. D, Srila Prabhupada should be worshipped daily by every ISKCON member. E, every spiritual master is responsible to guide his disciples to follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions. So more Founder-Acarya resolutions since then have identified our foundational relationship with Srila Prabhupada as the sublime pivot around which all our relationships in his society turn. Amid our ever-increasing diversity, Prabhupada remains the unity. And now we'll start taking a look at your Srila Prabhupada, how we can cultivate our own personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada. If you were born after Prabhupada's time or never knew him when he walked among us, you may wonder what will happen to his society when the last, quote, Prabhupada disciple has left this world. But if we understand, quote, disciple in its literal meaning as, quote, follower, we will realize that as the Hare Krishna movement continues to expand, Prabhupada's presence will likewise expand through his divine instructions. Despite our different Gurudevs, since we all share the same Founder-Acarya, generations will continue to follow Prabhupada into and out of this world, sharing Krishna's mercy with suffering humanity in many ways. Which aspect of Srila Prabhupada inspires you most? Prabhupada, the world's Sankirtan party leader, the divine writer, sublime chef, back to the land pioneer, cultural conqueror, master educator, founding father? The list goes on. A true transcendental Renaissance man, Prabhupada is many-sided. But to whichever side we're attracted, there are standard ways to build a personal, foundational relationship with his divine grace. So we'll look at a couple of those standard ways. The first and foremost is we can develop our relationship by spiritual sound. The first and foremost way we can all connect with Prabhupada is by becoming keen students of his spoken and written word. Regular attentive hearing from our Founder-Acarya, especially in the company of sincere devotees, grounds us in the root relationship that nourishes us all. In August 1968, a new initiate in Montreal told Prabhupada she felt far away from him when he wasn't there in person. This is actually my dear god sister Rukmini Prabhu, who was a 16-year-old girl and who had followed the devotees from San Francisco to Montreal to meet Prabhupada. So on August 15th, Prabhupada had initiated her, and then on the 18th, after Prabhupada had given a Bhagavatam class, he asked for questions, and then she asked a question. She said, Swamiji? Or she might have said Prabhupada, because back in May, Swamiji had become Prabhupada. Prabhupada, when you're not here, I feel so far away from you. Prabhupada replied, quote, oh, that you should not think. There are two conceptions of the spiritual master, the physical conception and the vibration conception. So physical conception is temporary. The vibration conception is eternal. Just like we are enjoying or we are relishing the vibration of Krishna's teachings. So by vibration, he is present. As soon as we chant Hare Krishna or chant Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavat, so he is present immediately by his vibration. So we should give more stress on the sound vibration, either of Krishna or of the spiritual master. Then we'll feel happy and no separation. Separated from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta for decades, Prabhupada would nonetheless say he always felt his spiritual master right by his side. How? By absolute absorption in studying and presenting Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's teachings. In the same way, in the company of sincere and serious devotees, absorbed in studying and presenting Prabhupada's teachings, we will also feel Prabhupada's presence in our lives. In this connection, two famous devotees from my generation come to mind. Jamuna Devi and Jayananda Prabhu. So I picked two famous devotees that practically everybody's heard of. After they come into ISKCON, they hear about Jamuna and Jayananda. In 1967, Jamuna and Jayananda were among the first to join Srila Prabhupada's movement in San Francisco. Deeply dedicated to Prabhupada from the start, they were also as different as night and day. To meet Jamuna was to meet a priestess of devotion, expressed most wonderfully through her cooking, singing, and deity worship. Prabhupada, the cultural conqueror, came through Jamuna. Jayananda was strong as an ox and humble as grass. A mechanical engineer by training, Jayananda was a tireless worker who was perhaps most beloved for building huge chariots for ISKCON's annual Ratha Yatra parades. Prabhupada's surpassing strength and humility came through Jayananda. Different as they were, Jamuna and Jayananda both had a deep love for hearing from Srila Prabhupada. By developing a similar love and a deep dedication to serving Srila Prabhupada's mission, one or more aspects of our beloved Founder-Acarya will also shine through us. So it's not just for famous devotees, but anybody who also becomes absorbed and surrendered to Prabhupada and his mission with the help of our beloved gurus, we'll also start to manifest an aspect of Prabhupada. And I say an aspect because nobody reflects all of Prabhupada's aspects. He's just too many-sided Renaissance man. But it's not necessary. Just to even reflect and give people one aspect, or give each other one aspect, is wonderful. So another way we can begin to develop our relationship with Srila Prabhupada is by serving his mission. Since some dubious devotional groups prematurely focus on seeing Krishna face to face, Prabhupada admonished his followers that the best way to see Krishna is to serve his mission his, Krishna's, mission under the guidance of his pure devotee, the spiritual master. Here's a purport excerpt. I think it's Bhagavatam 4:28-51. Quote, when one becomes serious to follow the mission of the spiritual master, his resolution is tantamount, it amounts to, seeing the supreme personality of Godhead. Instead of being eager to see the Lord in some bush of Vrindavan, while at the same time engaging in sense gratification, if one instead sticks to the principle of following the words of the spiritual master, he will see the Supreme Lord without difficulty. Unquote. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would say, don't try to see God. You work in such a way that God will see you. Unquote. And when that work is done cooperatively in Prabhupada's mission, synergizing the efforts of different generations, Krishna sees and blesses us manyfold. Next section I call No Jumping Over. In the early 1970s, as more devotees began to visit India, some became fascinated by the books of our Gaudiya forebears, our ancestors, especially Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Bhaktivinoda. So they asked Prabhupada if they could read them. Prabhupada was not pleased. Quote, you cannot imagine what my spiritual master said. Or even if you read some books, you cannot understand unless you understand it from me. This is called parampara system. You cannot jump over to the superior guru, neglecting the next acharya, immediate next acharya. Unquote. Since during his time with us, Srila Prabhupada was the only genuine spiritual master we knew, we did not fully appreciate his unique position as our Founder-Acarya. In ISKCON's multiple guru culture today, we've come to realize that a prime duty of our initiating and instructing spiritual masters is to deepen, enhance, and enrich our foundational relationship with Srila Prabhupada. If, quote, no jumping over means no neglecting one's, quote, immediate next acharya, unquote, how much more does that apply to Srila Prabhupada, our founder acharya, from whom we derive our core identity and through whom we see all teachers and teachings. And the more deeply our spiritual masters connect us with Srila Prabhupada, the more responsibility we have to pass on this unique legacy to others. So the final section, or the second to last section, it's called Imbibe and Impart. When Srila Prabhupada sees we're sincerely following him, he blesses us with the realization to pass on his teachings in ways both faithful and fitting. Prabhupada explains. This is from Prabhupada's purport to Bhagavatam 141. Quote, personal realization does not mean that one should, out of vanity, attempt to show one's own learning by trying to surpass the previous acharya. He must have full confidence in the previous acharya. And at the same time, he must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for the particular circumstances in a suitable manner. And the next sentence is italicized, and Prabhupada, it was his emphasis. The original purpose of the text must be maintained. No obscure meaning should be screwed out of it, yet it should be presented in an interesting manner for the understanding of the audience. This is called realization. unquote. To imbibe and impart Prabhupada's legacy is to become gurus in our own right, not to imitate or replace our Founder-Acarya, but to follow in his footsteps. Quote, because people are in darkness, we require many millions of gurus to enlighten them. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is, he said, that, quote, every one of you become guru, unquote. And now, Prabhus, I should alert you that we're approaching the end of the talk, so start thinking about your questions and comments. Finally, we end with the benefits of deeply understanding Srila Prabhupada's position. In his authorized booklet, Srila Prabhupada, the Founder-Acarya of ISKCON, Ravindra Swarup Prabhu concludes by listing the benefits of deeply understanding Prabhupada's unique transcendental position, especially for all who serve his movement. So I took this directly from Ravindra Prabhu's booklet, the way he ended the booklet, the benefits of deeply understanding Prabhupada's position. And by meditating on these benefits, we can actually further develop our relationship, our own Srila Prabhupada. So there's 7. 1, generation after generation will be able to receive the special mercy offered by Srila Prabhupada. The path back to Godhead he opened will be ever increasingly traveled. 2, Srila Prabhupada's active presence will secure the unity and integrity of ISKCON, strengthening both the GBC and guru-disciple bonds. 3, by taking full shelter of Srila Prabhupada as Shiksha Guru in his Vani manifestation, all teachers in ISKCON on various levels of advancement will be able to authentically convey Srila Prabhupada's real teaching, thus giving proper guidance, shelter, and protection to all. 4, ISKCON's teachings will remain consistent over space and time. 5, Prabhupada's realized knowledge, endowing him with the specific potency to spread Krishna consciousness, will be not only preserved, but also developed. 6, his books will remain central to us, for they contain insights and directions that await future development to be realized. And finally, number 7, Srila Prabhupada's eyes will always remain the lens through which all future generations see our predecessor acharyas. So all those benefits naturally accrue to devotees who realize their core identity as Prabhupada's followers. Inspired by, quote, our Prabhupads, we will cooperate, even when we disagree, to bring the Lord's mercy to everyone. I can't imagine a better way to please Srila Prabhupada, our beloved Founder-Acarya. Okay, Prabhus, I'll be very happy to hear your questions and comments now. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Sureshvara Prabhu. This wonderful class. And we have gratitudes in the comment section for this class, and also the questions, some questions. And the first question is, at the moment, at present, how do you maintain, how do you keep this connection with Srila Prabhupada? How do you nourish it? And if you have a question to Prabhupada, how can one get an answer?
Two-part question. That's good. How do I keep my relationship, my connection with Srila Prabhupada? Well, Srila Prabhupada is so available in his Vani, his vast Vani, So maybe a follow-up question might be, well, how do you access that, right? Because our problems might be very specific, or our questions might be very specific. Where do I look? Well, a great tool, for one thing, is the Bhaktivedanta database, which is put out by the Bhaktivedanta Archives. Sati Prabhu, was that available in other languages besides English? I don't know.
Yes, we have it available in Russian, at least at database.
Okay, great. Now, I'm not talking about Vedabase.com, the site, but the actual program, the Bhaktivedanta database.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you're thinking of the. Anyway, that is one tool. And if you do happen to know English, you can just go to the database and it's very searchable. You can punch in different keywords and things will come up. But the idea is that in Prabhupada's books and his lectures and his letters and his morning walks and his room conversations and his press conferences, I mean, he just made himself so available. You can practically, there's any answer to any question is there. That's one thing. And also, since, as Prabhupada would sometimes remind us, association of devotees is 90% of Krishna consciousness, we can always approach a senior Vaishnav who has more experience and knowledge of Prabhupada. And chances are they will know something Prabhupada wrote or something Prabhupada did or something Prabhupada said, which will speak to us. And here's a very mystical way we can stay in touch, or we can have Prabhupada answer a question for us. Even if we don't know English, or even if we're far away from devotees, you know, there might be a case where we're just really isolated. It's very mystical. And devotees from my generation, you know, my godbrothers and godsisters, would say this regularly, how they might have a problem or a question, and they'll just open up Prabhupada's books randomly. It appears random, but Krishna knows, Krishna's in the heart, and Krishna directs us to a passage or a verse that speaks right to our situation. It's very mystical how that works. But it all depends on our sincere and serious absorption in our Founder-Acarya. Then Krishna opens up the doors. It's not for someone who was only casual. Of course, there's some mercy there too, but the more we're absorbed, the more the reciprocation is with Prabhupada and Krishna. So what was the second part of the question, Sati?
If you've got a question for Prabhupada, how can one get an answer?
Yeah, well, I just answered that. So it's either directly through his Vani or his devotees, or it can be very mystically too, just by consulting. Just out of desperation, you might just open up a book or hear something, right? That just and this happens to me all the time. I mean, I'm
the other part of the question was, how do you keep the connection live?
Yeah, well, stay absorbed. Keep your ear to the ground, I like to say. It's like a bird keeps his ear to the ground to listen for the worm. Where are the worms? So if we want to find Prabhupada, keep our ear to the ground of his instruction, his Vani, his spoken word, written word. Everybody's is attracted to different aspects of Prabhupada's Vani. Or, you know, the films, as I like to say, he's so accessible through the videos and the films. And yeah, like every morning, first thing I do when I go in the bathroom, you know, to do my morning ablutions, I just, I have the tape. And you can systematically go through his all of his lectures from 1966 to 1977, or all of his morning walks, or or you can just do it chronologically. The Bhaktivedanta Archives has made it available in either in different categories, or you can just start with February 19th, 1966, which is the date of the first recording that Prabhupada made of himself. He was all alone, and he was dictating the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. You can go from February 16th, 19th, 1966, and you can go all the way through to November 14th, 1977. And many days there will be multiple recordings because Prabhupada would have himself recorded on the morning walk. That would typically be, the first recording of the day, the morning walk, because Prabhupada, he spent all night writing, and then that's available now in the form of his books. Then you might have a room conversation while he's getting massaged, in the middle of the day. Or a conversation later in the, say 6 o'clock, it was time to meet guests. So available, but we have to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anna, who asked this question, is saying thank you. Thank you, Sureshvara Prabhu.
Okay.
And the next, do we have time for questions, right?
Sure, yeah.
One more question from Ludmila. When I talk to people from other religions or confessions, when I mention Prabhupada, that he is a personality of the same level as Mohammed or Jesus, sometimes they take it as a challenge. It's very challenging for them to take it. And sometimes they start to argue with me. What is the best way to explain to them the position of Prabhupada?
Okay, well, first of all, you don't start off by by putting our Prabhupada, on a level with their Messiah or their prophet. That's just a bad strategy, because immediately, because people tend to be very sectarian, right? In Kali Yuga, people tend to be fanatic or sectarian. So if immediately you start equating Prabhupada with Muhammad or Jesus, sure, they're going to get their defenses up and try to prove that their prophet or their Messiah is on a higher level. So you just share what Prabhupada has taught with them and let them discover Prabhupada's greatness, as we all have, just by associating with him. And then you realize that Prabhupada's teachings and his example, by Krishna's grace, it's far beyond anything that is available in the Western religious traditions. Simply one reason is not due to any fault of Muhammad or Jesus, but the audience was not ready. So just in a very tactful way, introduce them to Prabhupada. Look for the teachable moment. Oh yeah, that reminds me of what our spiritual master said. It's very similar, and then find the points of commonality, the points that we agree or share, common ground. And then as they become more open, more interested, then you can reveal more. But don't start right away by, doing a comparison. That's a formula for no relationship. It's not going to go anywhere.
Okay, our next question is, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the name Srila Prabhupada?
Did I see the name Srila Prabhupada?
When you hear the name of Srila Prabhupada.
Now, I can take that question in different ways. One way I could take it is, what is literally the meaning of the name Srila Prabhupada? Maybe you can ask the questioner if that's what he or she meant.
Okay, please. Okay, maybe you can answer it both ways.
Okay, so literally, Srila, it's an honorific, it's a term of honor. indicating a great personality, like Sri, Sripad, Srila. Prabhupada, there's different ways to translate Prabhupada too, but the most common way Prabhupada gave us is the master, the Prabhu, at whose feet, Pad, all the other masters sit. As I mentioned, we have many Guru Days, Guru Maharajas, we have many, Shiksha and Diksha Gurus, but they're all meant to enrich, enhance, and deepen our foundational relationship and our core identity with the Founder-Acarya. We're all Prabhupada Anugas, Prabhupada followers. So that's literally what Srila Prabhupada means. Now, if you just mean just out of, just isolated, it's just sort of floating in the sky, Srila Prabhupada, what do I think? Well, it probably depends on where I am. Say I'm out and about shopping, socially distancing with my mask on, and then all of a sudden I see something in a store that says Srila Prabhupada. I'll be surprised. Oh, what about Srila Prabhupada? What is this? It might be a book of Srila Prabhupada, or it might be a picture, or it just depends on the context. Or I might overhear someone say it. Like I know in Moscow you have these amazing metros way underground, and they're very clean. Yeah, so you might overhear someone say in Russian, Srila Prabhupada, on the metro. And then all of a sudden your ears will perk up. Oh, what are they talking? They're talking about Prabhupada. I wonder what, and you'll try to, we say eavesdrop. You'll try to get closer to hear what they're talking about. So yeah, there's many ways to take the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, it's always such a delight to see a devotee on the subway, somebody with a bead bag or with tilak and say Hare Krishna to them. It's always, makes your day. There are, like thousands of people on the subway.
Right. Yeah, and all of a sudden there's a devotee, such a rare person. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, as I said, it's a delight. Yes, that's a good association you gave. Okay, and one more question. I think it is related to the notion of unity and diversity that you've mentioned a few times throughout this series. What does it mean to cooperate? Is it being submissive to others?
What's the symptoms of cooperating?
What does it mean to cooperate? Is it being submissive to others?
Okay, that's a good question. It's kind of, we say, a loaded question, especially the follow-up, because it can mean, does it mean being submissive to others? It sounds like that's the experience of the questioner. That when someone says, okay, Prabhu, just cooperate, what does that mean? It means the way the person is saying it is just surrender to me, just do it my way, right? So, well, let's back up a little bit and look at the word in English. Cooperate literally means to operate, to work together. So what will inspire us to work together is to discover our common ground, just like I taught that whole lesson, to love is to cooperate. So where did it start? We can't even begin to cooperate unless there's some basic trust that we both, however different we may be, share the same foundational motive, that we really do want to serve and surrender to and please Srila Prabhupada by working together in his mission. And the last part of that lesson, I gave you a quote from Prabhupada about how he was saying, if we work together, we can do so much. United we stand, divided we fall. And how even Mahaprabhu, he's God. So of course, he's playing the role of a devotee, but he's God, and he's asking for our cooperation. Oh, I have so many fruits of love of God, I can't distribute them on my own. Of course he can. But he's giving us an opportunity to help him, to serve him. So like distributing books or distributing prasad or distributing Krishna consciousness in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, it starts with a basic trust that the other person with whom I may disagree even has a benevolent motive, has a good motive. And then so I forget the question now. What does it mean? Okay, what does it mean to cooperate? Yeah, it means to work together. But, you know, like I remember in one letter, Prabhupada was saying to a temple president that a good manager will always give the devotees in his or her temple a fresh challenge. Prabhupada used the phrase, fresh challenge. They were always, it's never going to become old or stale or routine. Something new, a new way to please Prabhupada, a fresh challenge. We have that here in our ISKCON Tucson. Our director, Sundamini Devi Dasi, she's always, she's a brilliant person and keeping things fresh and new and exciting and dynamic. So so if the leader also, the one who's asking for the devotee's cooperation, is also doing everything that the leader is asking the devotees to do, leads by example, not just ordering and then doing nothing, him, herself, or herself, then that's also very inspiring, that the leader is leading by example. So it's not, cooperation is just not a matter of being, you know, submissive. Submissive is good, but what inspires us to be submissive is when the leader is more surrendered than me. Yeah, that leader is great. I want to help this leader accomplish this goal or this assignment or this challenge. Like now you have the Prabhupada marathon or Christmas marathon, however you call it. And if the leader is himself or herself also going out in the cold and in the dark or whatever the conditions are, because the days are shorter in the Northern Hemisphere, that's very inspiring when the leader is also surrendering to the order that he or she gave. So cooperation is a two-way street. And of course, that's why we, those of us who were in the first generation of following Prabhupada, that's why we cooperated with Prabhupada, because Prabhupada was leading the charge. He was working harder than all of us, non-stop, a seamless weave of different services, day and night. And yeah. So the cooperation, the surrender should not be blind, but it should be there. You shouldn't avoid the surrender. But that surrender is inspired by the example and the words of the leader. And Prabhupada's our ultimate leader. So his example is supreme. Nobody will ever be able to say that I'm working harder than Prabhupada. No, he couldn't say that. So cooperation, yeah, that was Prabhupada, what I call Prabhupada's Mahavakya. That was his ultimate utterance. Your love for me will be shown by how you cooperate, work together, And by that, doing that, we can spread far and wide. We can do great things. We can do more than we do on our own. Good question. Are there any more?
One more, if you have time.
Yeah.
Question is, maybe you could share with us some story or something about Prabhupada that inspires you personally, you know, like you personally.
Okay. I could swear these are the same questions I answer every week, but I do give different talks, so maybe
I think you have so many sanghas that it probably blends in.
Well, I always joke. I think in Omsk, I think they asked me this at Omsk. Yeah. So I joked. It would be like asking me in 1968, what's my favorite Beatles song? Because I liked all their songs. But according to the time of day or the mood I was in, I would pick, I would pick a song. So similarly with Srila Prabhupada, because he has so many sides and he did so much and continues to do so much through his movement and his everlasting Vani, I will be, I will respond in different ways. So let me see. Right now here in ISKCON Tucson, Arizona, it's 8:22 a.m. The whole day is ahead of me. And now I guess it's 6:23 or 22 p.m. in Moscow. So it's a different time of day, which inspires a different mood, when the day is sun is going, well, sun's already down, I'm sure, where you are. Sun's just rising where we are. So let me think. So the sun is rising. It's a brand new day. It's Sunday. So we're getting ready for the Sunday festival. We still have a Sunday festival, by the way, even though it's COVID and pandemic. We just socially distance and everybody wears masks and yeah. So let's see, Sunday. Well, I'll just have to tell you, every Sunday I meet with a lady I'm going to initiate on January 10th into the Parampara. And to do that, it's part of the ceremony, I'm going to give an initiation lecture. And to get ready for that lecture, I'm looking at lectures Prabhupada gave on initiation. So I'm looking at how Prabhupada, I mentioned Rukmini, that quote we had when 3 days after her own initiation in August 1968, she said to Prabhupada, oh yeah, when you're not here, I feel so far away from you. And Prabhupada said, oh, that you should not think. Just as soon as you, remember my words, right? Either his written word or his spoken word, we can immediately be in the presence of Prabhupada. So I'm looking at that lecture. He said to Rukmini, because she was a 16-year-old girl. I mean, she was so young. And so, and she was very pretty, she's beautiful. And so Prabhupada said, so you're a beautiful girl. And so he said, what is the name? So she gave her name, Wendy. Her name is Wendy Weiser. So Prabhupada said, so you're a beautiful girl. So your name is Rukmini, because she was Krishna's favorite queen. So, and then Prabhupada said how told about how Rukmini had never seen Krishna, but she just, by hearing about him, she had given her heart to Krishna, and she wrote a letter to Krishna on the eve of her supposed marriage to Shishupal, this demoniac guy. And so she wrote a letter describing the time and the place, and and how Krishna should come to the event and kidnap her. She was inviting Krishna that she'd never seen or met to kidnap her so that she could be his wife, right? So then Prabhupada saying to Rukmini, so we should always think how we can belong to Krishna. He was telling her that you're a beautiful girl, but you should always think how you should belong to Krishna. So it was very sweet and very, philosophically, it was so correct because we all do belong to Krishna. We're all part and parcel of Krishna. So yeah, I'm thinking about that. I'm going to definitely share that with my student who knows Rukmini. She's one of my students' Shiksha gurus. She has a relationship with Rukmini, who's now, of course, like a queen mother in ISKCON. She's a venerable Vaishnavi, been in the movement, 52 years. So much to share, so much Prabhupada to give people. And I'm looking at a couple of more initiation lectures. The first one Prabhupada gave on the occasion of Janmashtami in 1966. It was on his Vyasa Puja. Yeah, because first is Janmashtami. It was September 8th, and he was telling the first group of devotees he was going to initiate. He was telling them what initiation meant. And so he said, initiation means that the spiritual master takes charge of the disciple. And then he said, and then the disciple, for the disciple, it means he accepts the spiritual master as God. And then there was pin drop silence. It's such a radical statement. And Prabhupada purposely did that just to see their reaction. They were stunned. And when he saw they couldn't ask any questions, because Prabhupada was really waiting for somebody to ask for a clarification, because of course, in a way, the spiritual master is God, as God's representative. But Prabhupada said, Swamiji said, the spiritual master is God, except the spiritual master is God, the disciple. And then when he saw they were just stunned, he just got up off his seat. It was just a high dais. There was no proper vyasasana, just a raised seat. He got up, he turned to his right, he walked out of the storefront, turned right again, walked through the hallway, through the courtyard, and up to his apartment, number 2C. He had an apartment. And then all the people were left stunned in the storefront. And they said, hey man, did you hear that? Yeah, I heard that, man. I don't know if I can go through with this. I don't know if I can go through with this, initiation, except the spiritual master is God. My mind's been blown, man. All our minds have been blown, so it was a big thing. So anyway, there was clarification later when one of the disciples went up and asked for clarification, and Swamiji reciprocated by explaining that the spiritual master is God's representative. He's not God, but he is. But in effect, he is, because he's representing God. Just like if the mayor of Moscow walked into your place, Sati, you would have to, not the mayor, but say the mayor's representative, the deputy or whoever they have. You would be by protocol, by etiquette, obliged to treat him like the mayor because he's representing the mayor. So that's the spiritual master. He's God's ambassador, God's representative. So that's how I'm preparing. I'm just looking at I'm looking at another initiation lecture too, because it contains, Prabhupada gave a lady a name that I plan to give my student. So I'm looking at how Prabhupada did that. So yeah, in this way, I'm meditating on Prabhupada because of what's coming up in my life. This will be the first person I'll initiate. It's the person, it's new to the person to have a spiritual master, but it's new to me too. I'm going to be a spiritual father. So I have to, be up to the task. By Prabhupada's mercy, I have to deepen, enrich, and enhance her relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so it's been so nice being with you, Prabhus. You've actually heard all my Zoom talks. I only have 2. During the pandemic, I've been sharing lessons from his Leelas. We did those 6 times that I saw Prabhupada and the lessons I learned. And then now you've heard all the Founder-Acarya Central talks. So hopefully COVID will lift. There's vaccines coming. And maybe I can visit you all in Russia sometime,
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Without a mask, face to face.
Hopefully
yeah, let's see.
Mask, because it's really, so difficult to breathe in them.
I know.
Yes, Sureshvara Prabhu, thank you so much for all the nectar you shared with us for this amazing journey, a discourse into the depths of Srila Prabhupada. And, you allowed us to touch and come across him, come in touch with him again and again. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I really hope that everybody imbibes Prabhupada, because you are the next generation of people who will have to pass that on as gurus. So please imbibe Prabhupada as deeply as you can, so his presence will not diminish, it will only increase.
Yeah, thank you. So this being the last session, I think we will be thinking in separation about you, and hope on you to meet you again online, to listen to you again.
Yes, there's no devotees like the Russian devotees, and I hope to meet you again someday.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All right. Thank you, Prabhus. I'll take my leave now. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Haribol.